The crisp autumn air of Manhattan carried a single, defiant yellow leaf, which spiraled down to land squarely on the polished toe of Ethan Vance's Italian leather shoe. He stepped out of the black town car, a faint smile touching his lips as he bent to pick it up. He murmured that the season was truly settling in. His driver, Frank, glanced at him and tentatively asked if he could be dismissed for the day. Frank had requested earlier to use the company car to pick up his mother from a hospital in Queens. Ethan, a man known for his generosity despite his demanding nature, had not only agreed but had also given Frank a thick envelope of cash. Ethan checked his watch. It was nearly 10. He told Frank to go, reminding him to drive carefully and that safety was the priority. Frank sped off, leaving the handsome, dark-circled CEO to admire the fall foliage in front of his gleaming office tower. Despite the shadows under his eyes, Ethan felt a sense of relief he hadn't experienced in weeks. At 27, he was shouldering burdens far beyond his years. He had founded his own small firm with substantial financial backing from his father, and 90% of his business still came from the elder Vance's corporation. He wrestled daily with the feeling of being a Nepo baby, pouring himself into every project to prove his worth. The question of whether he had finally stepped out of his father's shadow was a constant, and so far unanswered preoccupation. But that wasn't the source of his exhaustion. For the last 2 weeks, he had been convinced he was being haunted. Whether he was working late at the office or at home, strange sounds would echo in the silence. His sleep was shattered into 40-minute fragments, a torturous cycle that left him frayed. Though a firm believer in science, he held a paradoxical and equally firm belief in ghosts. He was certain he had picked one up somewhere. His colleagues suggested he was simply overworked, having not taken a single day off in 2 months, and advised a vacation. But Ethan was convinced it was something more sinister. Through a hushed referral, he found a spiritual advisor, a woman in her 60s who looked 90, operating out of a cramped Greenwich Village apartment. She had barely looked at him before declaring that he was carrying someone on his back. Ethan felt a cold dread wash over him. He asked if there was a way to fix it, explaining that he'd even felt his steps were heavier lately. The woman smiled faintly, saying there was, but it would come at a price. Ethan, desperate, told her to name it. Anything to get the entity off of him. For the next 2 hours, the highly educated young executive participated in a bizarre ritual involving smudging sage, chanting, and the advisor entering a trance-like state. The atmosphere was more unnerving than any ghost. When it was finally over, Ethan thought the exorcism itself was the most terrifying part. He asked if the thing was gone. The woman assured him with a smug smile that her work was never unsuccessful. He paid her and went home, heart light with hope. That night, the insomnia returned with a vengeance. Resigned, he went to his home office to work. A series of sharp taps echoed from the ceiling above him. A sound he'd read was the clatter of a ghost's teeth. Fear, sharp and cold, banished any lingering drowsiness. The persistent ache in his neck and shoulders, which his colleagues had noted with concern, now seemed to have a terrifying explanation. He was physically carrying the weight of the ghost. Terrified, he returned to the advisor, insisting that things had only gotten worse. The woman performed another quick reading and pronounced the ghost to be a very powerful one. Ethan's blood ran cold. He wondered if he'd have to join a monastery to save himself, a thought he immediately dismissed. He was far too attached to worldly pleasures for a life of asceticism. The advisor finally offered him a way out. She scribbled a date on a slip of paper and handed it to him. She explained that he needed to find a man born on this specific day, the summer solstice, a day brimming with the year's most potent positive energy. He questioned if this was some sort of romantic setup. The advisor seemed surprised and clarified that it was not. He just needed this man by his side for 49 days, and the ghost would be repelled. By this point, Ethan's skepticism had returned, but he took the note anyway. He warned her that if this didn't work, he would report her for fraud. The woman just smiled serenely and promised it would. Because of that promise, Ethan made a decision. He would hire a personal assistant, a live-in one. The moment he left the advisor's apartment, he instructed his HR department to post a job opening. The requirements were starkly simple. Male with a specific date of birth. 3 days later, only one resume had been submitted. Ethan decided to interview the sole applicant himself. He had spent the previous night poring over the document until he could recite it from memory. Leo Foster, 25, a graduate of a minor culinary institute abroad. He'd worked briefly as a line cook at a well-known local restaurant, but with little hope for advancement. The resume was sparse, suggesting a man who was either audacious or aimless. Still, there was something about the confident gaze in his ID photo that intrigued Ethan. He'd even dreamed of the man during the 10 minutes of fitful sleep he'd managed to get. Ethan Vance was, for all his business acumen, a superstitious and superficial man. The interview was scheduled for 10:30, leaving him a few minutes to enjoy the autumn morning. Filled with a flicker of hope, he strode forward, a childlike impulse making him aim for the crisp, fallen leaves on the pavement. 1 step, 2 steps. Then, on the third, his world collapsed. He wasn't a neat freak, but the sensation under his shoe would make anyone gag. Someone, some monster devoid of all public decency, had allowed their dog to foul the sidewalk, and a single leaf had perfectly camouflaged the offense. He let out a strangled cry of disgust in front of his own company building. So much for his good mood. The gleaming shoe was ruined. A voice, calm and pleasant, asked if he was all right. It was as if the universe was conspiring against him. As he stood there, reeling from the dog waste incident, a tall, handsome man in a sharp suit approached him. The man's voice was as attractive as his face. Ethan looked at him, his expression one of utter defeat. He thought, "Does it look like I'm all right?" Leo Foster faltered for a second, then a smile played on his lips. He conceded that Ethan did not, in fact, look all right. If he had a choice, Ethan thought, he would have HR call this man immediately and tell him the interview was canceled. But a man with dog feces on his shoe has no choices. Leo suggested that there was surely a restroom inside where he could clean up. Ethan just shook his head, dismissing the idea. Leo thought it was strange that such a well-dressed man would be so casual about such a thing. Ethan then called his secretary, his voice tight, instructing her to bring a pair of shoes downstairs immediately. Hanging up, he turned to Leo with a strained smile and asked for a hand. Leo helped him hobble to a nearby trash can. He watched, fascinated, as the man braced his heel against the rim of the bin, flicked his foot, and sent the expensive shoe flying into the empty receptacle. Ethan offered a terse thank you and then stood there, chest out, head high, waiting for his secretary. The secretary arrived, holding a pair of shoes from Ethan's office. But she had obviously grabbed the wrong pair. It was common knowledge that the CEO kept various changes of clothes for different occasions. You couldn't wear a tuxedo to a golf game. His office suite included a small dressing room for just this purpose. Forgetting to ask which shoes he needed, the secretary had brought down his gym sneakers. For the rest of the morning, everyone who saw Ethan Vance saw their CEO striding through the corporate halls in a bespoke suit and a pair of bright white running shoes. Ethan was beyond furious. At 10:25, HR called to inform him that the applicant had arrived. Ethan, now in his office with proper shoes on, confirmed he was on his way. But the image of him in the suit and sneakers had already been seared into the minds of his employees. He knew he would be the butt of office jokes for at least a week. The humiliation made him want to quit and go home. Before leaving his office, he glanced at Leo's resume again. The man was handsome, even more so in person than in his photo. If his resume had been more impressive, and if their first meeting hadn't involved canine excrement, Ethan might have considered pursuing something further, assuming Leo was also interested in men. But Leo was no corporate prodigy, and their meeting had been a disaster. Besides, Ethan's company had a strict no-office romance policy. He walked towards the conference room, his composure a fragile mask. Two Ethans were arguing in his head. One, a devil on his shoulder, snarled that he should eliminate the witness. The other, an angel, urged him to be professional and separate the personal from the business. Ethan would never do anything illegal, but he was not a man who could easily separate the two. He thought that if there were a second applicant, Leo wouldn't even be in the building right now. But fate was cruel. Was his pride more important than his life? The superstitious CEO decided to give Leo a chance. As he walked past the guest waiting area, he stole a glance. He saw Leo sitting on the sofa, holding his own unremarkable resume. A shame, Ethan thought again. Such a handsome face. Without the morning's incident, their meeting could have been a beautiful story of salvation. Now it felt like a cursed entanglement. He sighed. An employee passed by and chirped a good morning to the CEO, making him jump. He entered the conference room and sat in the center, rubbing his temples before Leo was even shown in. This interview was unusual. They were hiring a 24-hour personal assistant, a role that blurred the lines of professional duty and shouldn't have been handled by corporate HR. But Ethan couldn't be bothered with subtleties. He was surprised it had taken so long to get even one applicant. When Leo entered, he recognized the man at the center of the table immediately. He froze for a second, realizing the man he'd helped with the dog poop situation was his interviewer. What a bizarre encounter. But Leo was quick on his feet. He knew if he wanted this job, he had to pretend they had never met. He greeted the interviewers politely and sat down. Ethan remained almost entirely silent throughout the interview. His head of HR, a seasoned professional, handled the questioning with ease. Ethan just listened. Despite his background, Leo presented himself exceptionally well. He was articulate, logical, and answered every question with a calm confidence. Ethan was impressed. At the end of the first round, HR told Leo to wait for their call within 3 days. If he passed, there would be a written exam. The position of CEO's personal assistant was not to be taken lightly. Though Ethan was conflicted, he had no other options. After staring at the advisor's note for 2 more sleepless nights, he told HR to schedule Leo for the written test. Leo was eating a $10 bowl of ramen with no meat in it when he got the call. He had waited for 2 days. He expressed his gratitude and was told the study materials for the exam had been sent to his email. He had 1 week to prepare. Overjoyed, he immediately ordered another bowl of ramen, this time the $15 version with beef. Before opening the email, Leo had done some preliminary research on the duties of a CEO's personal assistant, primarily sourced from a series of cheesy billionaire romance novels he'd gotten sucked into online. He knew his research was skewed, but the stories were surprisingly addictive. His understanding of the role was therefore somewhat dramatic and highly inaccurate. He downloaded the attachment, unzipped it, and stared in disbelief. The contents were beyond anything he could have imagined. It was a comprehensive dossier on Ethan Vance's personal tastes, a preference for spicy food and a hatred of sweets. A love for plaid but a disdain for pinstripes. A devotion to black coffee and an aversion to milk. A passion for basketball and a loathing for soccer. Leo spent the next week memorizing the entire document. On the day of the test, he stepped out of the elevator and saw Ethan. He still didn't know this was the CEO he would be shadowing. He offered a cheerful good morning. Ethan, who had just made himself a coffee, was walking like a zombie towards his office. The sudden appearance of Leo startled him. His hand jerked, and coffee sloshed over his expensive loafers. Leo glanced down, and before Ethan could react, he had pulled a pack of tissues from his pocket and offered it. He remarked with a smile that the shoes looked expensive and Ethan should try to save them this time instead of throwing them away. It was an impossibly absurd situation. Ethan stared at Leo, wondering if the man was some kind of curse upon his footwear. He thought, if I have sinned, let the law punish me, not this man and his vendetta against my shoes. He managed a thank you. He was in his own company in front of his employees and security cameras. He had to maintain his image. He took the tissues and walked away. He told himself it was over. There were billions of people in the world. Surely he could find another man born on the summer solstice. Leo Foster was out. The shoes were expensive. Ethan wasn't wasteful. He strode back to his office and crouched down, dabbing at the coffee stain. The tissue packet was pink, with a floral print and a faint, sweet scent. It was a stark contrast to Leo's masculine appearance. The incongruity was endearing. At 25, Leo was still just a kid compared to his own mature 27 years. The coffee was cold by the time he finished, but he drank it anyway. HR called to say the exam was about to begin and asked if he wanted to observe. He'd forgotten to tell them to cancel it. He figured he might as well let Leo take it. It would be good practice for him. But then, a wave of guilt washed over him. He was a monster, a manipulative boss playing with a young man's hopes. He was letting Leo take a test for a job he had no intention of giving him. The internal turmoil was excruciating. He resolved to stick to his decision. He would not let this curse-bringer into his life. But life is unpredictable. A week after the exam, Leo still hadn't heard back. He checked his bank account and confirmed he could no longer afford even the $10 ramen. He was broke. He had returned from culinary school abroad with dreams of opening his own restaurant, but the startup costs were astronomical. He took the line cook job to save money, but the kitchen politics and hazing by senior chefs were unbearable. Being young and hot-headed, he'd stood up for himself, which resulted in his swift dismissal. Life had taught him a harsh lesson about the consequences of impulsive actions. But he didn't regret it. He believed he would find another job, that he would open his restaurant someday. But the dwindling numbers in his bank account taught him another lesson. Sometimes you have to bend. This assistant job seemed like something out of a novel, a potential ticket to a better life. As he sat in his tiny rented room, eating a piece of stale bread, his phone rang. It was HR. A familiar voice congratulated him on being hired and asked him to come in that afternoon. Leo was confused, asking about the final interview. The HR representative explained that due to special circumstances, it had been canceled. He quickly agreed, promising to be there on time. Hanging up, he felt a surge of triumphant energy. The bread suddenly tasted like roasted chicken. Meanwhile, Ethan stood in front of his mirror, sighing. He had bought the most powerful concealer he could find, but it did nothing to hide the deep, dark circles under his eyes. The last 3 nights had been hell. Every time he managed to fall asleep, he was jolted awake by a crushing weight on his chest. Sleep paralysis. He was terrified. He felt like he was wasting away. He couldn't die. He had so much left to do, so many ambitions unrealized. He hadn't even been in a real relationship. Defeated, he called HR and told them to hire Leo. He was his only hope now. If Leo's presence didn't change anything, he would go to the police and have that fraudulent psychic arrested. Dejected, Ethan chose a pair of inexpensive shoes to wear for his meeting with Leo that afternoon. He wouldn't be caught off guard again. At 2 o'clock, Ethan pushed open the conference room door. Leo was there, looking sharp and full of life in a well-fitting suit. The sight was pleasing. Ethan took 2 steps forward, then 1 step back. Best to keep a distance. The HR manager introduced him as the CEO, explaining that Leo would be his personal assistant. Leo was stunned. The man from the dog poop incident, the man from the coffee spill, was the CEO. It was a completely different image from the portly, middle-aged man he had imagined. Suddenly, he felt there was something he needed to confess before starting. The terms of the job were laid out. No holidays, barring special circumstances. He would move into Ethan's home immediately. He would provide 24-hour personal care. And he must be honest and trustworthy. There was also an unspoken addendum. Stay away from the CEO's shoes. The salary was exorbitant, and the probation period was only 49 days. Ethan had dismissed the HR manager so they could talk alone. He explained that Leo wouldn't be handling business matters. His corporate secretary did that. He also wouldn't be doing housework. A housekeeper took care of that. Leo asked what exactly he was supposed to do. Ethan's reply was 3 simple words. Stay with me. Leo's body went rigid. He took a sharp breath, thinking, so this is it. He stated firmly that he was not for sale. Ethan, who had been trying to project an aura of a cool, powerful boss, suddenly flushed, his ears turning red. He insisted it was a legitimate job offer. Leo awkwardly agreed that he was a legitimate person. Ethan frowned, thinking that anyone whose mind went there was probably not entirely legitimate. He'd have to keep a close eye on this one. Leo, not wanting to lose this lucrative opportunity, a year of this salary could fund his restaurant, asked for clarification. So his job was to be like a bodyguard protecting him? That was close enough. Ethan couldn't very well tell him he was being hired as a human ghost repellent. It was embarrassing and unsettling. He nodded, saying that was basically it, but there was more. Leo sat up straighter, his internal alarms ringing. His parents had raised him to be a man of integrity. He had always told himself he would never compromise his principles for money. But looking at the handsome man in front of him, he felt a flicker of hesitation. He told himself he was not a shallow person swayed by good looks. But that was before he met Ethan Vance. Ethan, oblivious to Leo's inner turmoil, leaned back in his chair, trying to appear nonchalant and authoritative. He had to establish the dynamic from the start. He added that Leo might occasionally be asked to handle small tasks, like booking flights or hotels. Leo confirmed that he could handle that. That was it? Leo was baffled. The salary seemed wildly disproportionate to the duties. But he wasn't about to question his good fortune. They talked a little more, and Ethan urged him to sign the contract. He was desperate for a good night's sleep. As Leo held the pen, he hesitated. He had a small preference for nice hands, and Leo's were long, slender, and strong. He found himself momentarily distracted, a feeling he quickly chastised himself for. Leo put the pen down. He explained that since they would be living together, he felt he needed to be completely honest. He took a breath, looking pained. "I'm gay," he said. "I like men." Ethan blurted out, "So you like me?" Leo was taken aback and quickly clarified that was not what he meant. Ethan's brow furrowed. Then what do you mean? The sudden shift in atmosphere confused Leo. Why did the CEO seem displeased that he wasn't attracted to him? Leo explained that since they would be living in close quarters, he thought it was best to be upfront, in case Ethan was uncomfortable. Ethan, now on the defensive, asked if Leo thought he was homophobic. Leo vehemently denied it, saying he was just worried it might make things awkward. Seeing no issue from Ethan's side, he quickly signed the contract. As Ethan stood to leave, he paused at the door and turned back. "So you're saying you don't like me?" he asked again. Leo was at a loss. This man's train of thought was bizarre. Perhaps that's why he needed a full-time assistant. Unsure how to answer, he hesitated. Ethan pressed him, asking what was on his mind. Leo clutched the contract and said the first thing that came to him. "I have great respect for you." It was the most ridiculous confession Ethan had ever heard, if it even counted as one. He waved a dismissive hand and left. If he didn't leave now, this handsome man would lose his job, and he would be stuck with his ghost. He walked to the elevator, wondering about Leo. He was actually a decent guy if you ignored the shoe incidents. He looked down at his current, unharmed shoes. Maybe the first 2 times were just freak accidents. HR called his office to report that Leo had gone home to pack and would start officially the next morning. Ethan, who rarely lost his temper with staff, felt a surge of frustration. He had wanted him to move in today. The HR rep was audibly startled by the edge in his voice. Ethan took a deep breath, reining himself in. He told them tomorrow was fine. One more night. He could survive one more night. That evening, he realized he couldn't. Staying at work was no better than being at home. The empty office was just as creepy. He couldn't sleep, but he was terrified of being awake and alone. He decided to go out. The liveliest place at night was a bar. He sent out a mass text to his friends, but they were all busy with work, travel, or their partners. Standing on the street, he felt a profound sense of despair. He patted his own shoulder and whispered, "Well, old ghost, looks like it's just you and me again tonight." The words chilled him to the bone. He hailed a cab and headed for the nearest bar. The place was crowded, the music deafening. He found a spot at the bar and ordered a cocktail. It was terrible and overpriced. He was silently stewing when someone jostled him hard from behind. The rest of his expensive, awful drink sloshed down his pants and onto his shoes. Before he could react, the person who had bumped him was out the door with several other men in pursuit. It looked like a brawl was brewing. As a good citizen, Ethan felt he should call the police. He looked down at his soaked shoes, sighed, and followed them outside. He saw 3 men pinning another to the ground, punching and kicking him. Ethan dialed 911, then weighed his options. He was actually quite capable in a fight, a fact that surprised most people who saw his slender build. Seeing the 3-on-1 odds, his sense of justice ignited. He tossed his jacket aside, rolled up his sleeves, and cracked his knuckles. He grabbed one of the attackers and threw him aside, then systematically dismantled the other 2. By the time the police arrived, he was standing over the 3 men, looking like an action hero. Then he heard a familiar voice from the ground. "Mr. Vance?" Ethan looked down. It was Leo, bruised and disheveled. "Leo," he said, his voice flat. "It seems we're fated to meet like this." The police questioned them. The attackers had already fled. Leo explained that he had been in the bar and saw the men trying to drug a young woman's drink. He intervened, and they chased him outside. The young woman he'd helped stepped forward to corroborate his story, thanking him profusely. The police left, and Ethan asked Leo if he needed to go to the hospital. His face was bruised and his pants were torn at the knee. Leo said he was fine, as long as Ethan wasn't embarrassed to have him as an assistant now. Ethan was momentarily confused, and Leo explained that with a bruised face, he might be a liability to Ethan's image. Ethan deadpanned that he should resign then. Leo's eyes widened in alarm. Ethan assured him he was joking and told him to go home and get some rest. As Leo turned to leave, he winced, touching his split lip. The gesture, the sight of his hand, sent another strange jolt through Ethan. He quickly turned to go back into the bar, wanting to escape the weird tension. But Leo called out to him, holding up his jacket. "Mr. Vance, you forgot this." As Ethan took it, their hands brushed. Leo's hand was ice cold. Ethan said a curt goodnight and retreated into the bar. The next day, Leo arrived at the office with a suitcase. Ethan told him to put his luggage in the private lounge attached to his office as they were going out. Leo was nervous and excited. Ethan took him to a high-end department store and bought him a new suit and shoes, explaining coolly that his assistant's appearance reflected on him. The suit Leo was wearing was old and didn't fit properly. Leo, who was broke, tried to politely decline, but Ethan insisted. Standing in front of the mirror, looking sharp and sophisticated, Leo was a natural. Ethan found himself flustered by how good he looked in everything he tried on. He paid quickly, eager to leave before he did something foolish like buy the man 3 more suits. As they left, Leo clutched the bag with his old suit. Ethan told him to just throw it out. Leo laughed and said he should keep it, just in case he got fired and had to return the new one. Ethan found his pragmatism amusing. On the way back to the office with Leo driving, Ethan found himself watching him in the rearview mirror. He was undeniably handsome. When their eyes met, Ethan felt a strange defensiveness. He coolly stated that he only bought the suit for the sake of his own image. Leo just smiled, sincerely telling Ethan that he was a good boss. The praise made Ethan feel oddly guilty, knowing the real, selfish reason he'd hired him. To compensate, he told Leo that if the 49-day trial didn't work out, he would pay him for 3 full months and let him keep the suit. Leo, unaware of the underlying scheme, was deeply moved. He told Ethan he was a lifesaver, that he'd been on the verge of being unable to afford food. The sincerity of his gratitude made Ethan squirm with guilt. He felt like a complete fraud. He feigned a headache to end the conversation. In the ensuing silence, as Leo focused on the road, Ethan leaned his head back and, for the first time in weeks, fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. It only lasted for 15 minutes, but when he woke up as they pulled into the office garage, he felt more refreshed than he had in a month. As they got out of the car, Ethan stared at Leo with a look of dazed gratitude. Leo, misinterpreting the intense gaze, stiffened, his mind immediately jumping to workplace harassment. Ethan, lost in his own relief, was simply glad to have slept. He noticed Leo's strange expression and asked if he was unwell, adding that if so, he could resign. Leo quickly assured him he was in perfect health. That afternoon, while Ethan worked, Leo studied the CEO manual. He had expected it to be drudgery, but the contents were fascinating. Ethan Vance was an interesting man, full of bizarre contradictions. He loved beef but would faint at the smell of lamb. He loved black coffee but would faint at the smell of milk. He loved the color black but would faint at the sight of pink. Leo laughed, wondering if Ethan had written the manual himself. He diligently took notes, planning to prove his worth. He would cook Ethan a magnificent dinner that night. But Ethan worked late, and his secretary brought him takeout. When Ethan finished, he saw Leo's disappointed face and, remembering he hadn't eaten, gave him his card to get dinner downstairs. Leo asked if he might eat a second meal later that night. He explained that he had wanted to cook for him to show off his professional skills. Ethan, his mind once again going to strange places, wondered if this was another proposition. Was late-night snack a euphemism for Leo himself? Leo quickly clarified he just wanted to cook a meal. Ethan, a little disappointed but also intrigued, agreed. By the time Ethan finished work at 9, he was exhausted. He found Leo waiting for him. The drive to Ethan's penthouse was quiet, with a soft folk song playing on the radio. Ethan dozed off again. When he awoke in the underground garage, he was disoriented, having just been dreaming that he was a bride, about to be unveiled by a groom who looked exactly like Leo. Seeing Leo's face in the dim light, he mumbled, "Husband." Realizing his mistake, he quickly covered, claiming he wanted to visit Fuzhou. Ethan's home was massive and impeccably designed. The kitchen was a professional chef's dream. Leo was in heaven. While Ethan showered, Leo set to work. The aroma of simmering broth and fresh herbs soon filled the apartment. Ethan, drawn by the smell, came into the kitchen wearing silk pajamas. He watched, fascinated, as Leo moved with a practiced grace, completely absorbed in his work. The sterile apartment suddenly felt like a home. When the dish was ready, Leo presented it on a tray. It was a simple dish, a saffron risotto, but executed with breathtaking skill. 2 perfectly seared scallops were placed in the center, their edges just touching to form a subtle heart. Ethan stared at it, his mind racing. Was this a declaration? He steeled himself to remain impassive. He would eat the heart first to reject the advance. But when the first bite touched his tongue, all his preconceived notions vanished. It was, without exaggeration, the most delicious thing he had ever tasted. The flavors were complex and perfectly balanced. He looked up at Leo, his expression one of sheer astonishment. He declared it was absolutely incredible. In that moment, the powerful CEO was completely won over by a bowl of risotto. That night, for the first time in weeks, Ethan fell asleep peacefully. An hour later, however, a primal scream tore through the apartment. Leo, a deep sleeper, was jolted awake. He heard the cry again, raw with terror. He leaped out of bed and burst into Ethan's room without thinking. He flicked on the light and found Ethan huddled under the covers, a trembling lump. He asked what was wrong. A head peeked out. Ethan started to explain that it wasn't a nightmare. It was a ghost. But then he stopped, his eyes wide. Leo, who was accustomed to sleeping in his underwear, stood before him wearing only a pair of black boxer briefs. His physique, honed by years of quiet, personal workouts, was on full display. Ethan stared, mesmerized by the perfect set of 8-pack abs. He swallowed hard. "Leo," he said, his voice muffled by the duvet as he burrowed deeper to hide his expression. "Why aren't you wearing any clothes?" Leo, finally realizing his state of undress, apologized for his haste. Ethan quickly told him it was understandable, given the emergency. He then explained that a ghost had been choking him in his sleep, and that Leo's arrival had scared it away. He insisted that the positive energy was real. Leo, humoring him, said he was glad to help and started to leave. "Wait," Ethan called out. "Stay here tonight. Sleep on the sofa. I'm afraid it will come back if you leave." Leo froze, looking at the man buried in the bed. He thought there might not be a ghost in this room, but there's definitely something predatory. He had agreed to work for him, not sleep with him. On the sofa, Ethan repeated, finally tearing his gaze away from Leo's abs. "Just stay in the room.